Well, thank you very much. Again, a very hand-picked session. Hand-picked leaders. Okay. Look at the amalgamation here. A medical doctor, a chemist, a quantum scientist, Ayurvedic doctor, and a person who's into manufacturing health supplement using quantum Ayurveda. So, I promise you this particular 25, buddy, can we have a countdown here? Okay. This 25 minutes is going to be really good, and I'm a kindergartner when it comes to quantum Ayurveda. So I did mention Professor Anshu that please do navigate and educate me in case if I go wrong. How many of you really heard this word called quantum Ayurveda before Healthcare Summit 2025? There's one man there. So that makes this particular session so interesting. So we'll make sure that each and every word what we're delivering we'll deliver it with a lot of care. And let's make this particular Indian Institute of Science, this auditorium, the first step towards a formal discussion of quantum Ayurveda and how we can get into the market. So I promise you I won't take more than 2 minutes. Just trying to build up what exactly is this quantum Ayurveda and why are we here. So today we are exploring two powerful worlds, Ayurveda and modern science. That's what we've been discussing so far, how they can come together. So the Ayurveda has guided the health healing for thousands of years. Now the new tools like AI, quantum chemistry, advanced diagnosis are helping us to understand the new ways. But the big question remains is, how do we bring the Ayurveda to the future without losing its root? I again emphasize to the panel members, how do we bring Ayurveda to the future without losing its roots, its own identity? Now, since I mentioned that I'm a kindergartner, I was thinking about breaking down quantum and Ayurveda separately so that all of us can be in the same platform before we take a deep dive into this discussion. Let's understand quantum Ayurveda. It's basically an integration of herbal, all of you understand, energy. That's what Professor Anshu is coming here. He has to talk about energy, systems, okay, biology, quantum physics. Okay, so this is how we are trying to associate with each and member here. So now let's understand Ayurveda. We'll keep it very short and simple. Ancient science, it's a book which tells that what is a good herb, food, yoga, rest for a better longevity, better life. And quantum science, let's understand it's the invisible energy. The energy is something like Wi-Fi. The energies which operate the batteries. Okay, let's understand that as a quantum science. And with this, I take one more thing. I'd like to quote an example. Yesterday, one of my medical affairs friends was talking about liver 52. I'm sure every one of you heard about liver 52 by Himalaya. It is well accepted by modern allopathy prescribers. They talk about it. So it's an Ayurveda root. It has got scientific validation and globally accepted product. So with this, I would I just request a brief introduction about you, what you bring across the table, just for this particular session, maybe a one-liner. Okay, then we start with my question and answer. Okay. So Dr. Sateesh.
Completely.
Because we're having talks.
It's a completely new topic for me, but I'm pure allopathic doctor having 20 years in the toughest part of the medical area, like I take care of only diabetic patients, critical care. So I try to mix myself into this system and I just understand and how best we can cope up and see.
I am Dr. Prasanna Rao. I will be happy to talk about one of the points in Ayurveda is called ojas. The essence of all the tissues which you energize to function in the body. So how it can be?
I'm Dr. Anil Kumar. I've been working in industry in the cutting edge of trying to bring in the energy medicine and the normal molecular medicine together. So maybe I'll speak from a few of my experiences over the past decade or so. Thank you.
I'm Anshu Pandey. I'm not neither knowing much of Ayurveda nor anything about medicine. What I bring on board is basically measurement techniques. We are working with quantum dots and so on. We sort of are trying to invent new ways of detecting and measuring molecules, especially when they are not in very large numbers.
I think the perspective of industry where we are fusing Ayurveda with quantum science. That's what I'm going to add on and talk to.
Well, thank you very much. That comes us from the horse's mouth. So, Professor Pandey, how can quantum dots and nanomaterial help us precisely identify and standardize a complex compound? And let's take for an example here, Ayurvedic herbs.
So,
Help us to understand.
So, first of all, maybe I'll start with this short preamble of the angle from which I'm coming from. When we talk about, even modern medicine, most of the products which we have today are in one form or the other natural products. That has not changed. These may be products which emerge from plants but are being synthesized in a lab. These may be products which emerge from plants. The skeleton has been changed, it has been retained, but a functional group has been tweaked that would belong to many antibiotics. And there could be things which are already biologically known classes of molecules, things like RNA, for example, come to mind, which we have repurposed to do a new task. These are three broad examples of things which have just emerged. Now, what happens when we are dealing with the specifics which you talk about, which are Ayurvedic herbs and so on? One is talking about, again, these similar analytes, but these are in much lower concentrations. So, one important aspect becomes detecting molecules and interactions in very low concentrations. That is somewhere where nanomaterials do help. And another aspect which I'll quickly mention, which comes about here, is not just detection at low concentrations, but also examining synergistic effects. I cannot give examples about this from Ayurveda, where they are less characterized perhaps, but more characterized example, a common one which we are all familiar with, is a drug which we would have all had as a kid, amoxicillin, at some point of time or the other, which has now ceased to be that effective, and we now add chloruric acid to it. This would bring it back into an effective nature because, synergy of these two good things allows that drug to again reach through antibiotic resistant bacteria. So, taking that example, what we are looking at is again molecular interactions at very tiny scales in animal species, where nanoparticles and these things can help. Metallic systems already help using things like SIRS. Now, one point of contention would be SIRS gives you maybe too much information. So specificity comes when we add refractive index-based sensors and photonic sensors, which are a new paradigm. Somewhere where we ourselves added on to is the ability to detect unsaturation using nanoparticles. This one aspect adds yet another dimension when coupled together, say with an AI algorithm, one could identify molecules with much more accuracy. So that's one angle. Another active angle where nanomaterials help is, say, quantum dots, which are used actively as tagging agents, and we can track cells and organelles in motion. Where I think more and more interest is coming in, where we at least are very excited, is that we are realizing gradually that there are limits which quantum mechanics itself plays on existing generations of tagging agents and markers which are used. So where we are excited and we are taking this forward is that we have realized that now that we know what the rules are, we can break them. If we know a speed limit, we can break it. And that's sort of what we are doing. So we are now developing a new generation of markers which can be significantly brighter, around 20 times as of now in lab, than existing markers and reagents. So that is another direction that we are pushing.
Interesting. So let's validate this particular statement by Dr. Anil Kumar. My question to you would be very specific. How are the tools like NMR and AI helping us to decode the herbal properties scientifically? And have you seen a case where AI or spectroscopy reveals something surprisingly to you or something unexpected classical outcome of an Ayurvedic herb? So if you can share that, it would be.
So just continuing from where colleague has just said, the proportions in which the actives are actually existing in natural resources, in medicinal plants, are very critical. Very critical for their physiological action. And many times we only look at the actives, we screen do a simple biological screening and HPLC run of the extracts and say there are 6 or 7 or maybe 10 active species in a given extract, and those are the molecules that we have to look at in case we are making the drug again and again to standardize the Ayurvedic formulation. but many a times we miss out the ratios in which these actives actually are existing in natural medicinal plant, right? And this becomes very important now that the climate, because of climatic changes, the medicinal plants which were very active once upon a time are no longer giving us the same effect. Probably because the ratios of the actives have considerably changed. And that is where, to identify these ratios, these spectroscopic methods do help us a lot in actually identifying the ratios of the actives. And many a times, if the ratio is slightly not as it is supposed to be, invariably we see there is a drop in the action, physiological action, or there is no action at all. So it becomes very, very critical. And as I was just now mentioning, with the climatic changes, the medicinal plants themselves aren't, and also the change, the kind of soil erosion that we are having, the kind of depletion of nutrients in the soil, the kind of medicinal plants that are being produced, and another very important thing, this we call as xenohormesis. I don't know how many of you have heard of this. The plants produce secondary metabolites only during stress. If a medicinal plant is produced in a green room, right, under controlled conditions, then it's no longer a medicinal plant, because it will not have the actives that it's supposed to have. It needs to be brought up in the presence of biotic and abiotic stress under controlled conditions, because it is that stress which makes the medicinal plant produce the secondary metabolites which are of value for the humans when we consume it. So understanding this whole dynamics, this holistic connect to the way the plant is cultivated, the time of harvest. In fact, I'm sure Ayurvedic professors will be able to tell us more on this. The moon, the phase of the moon at which the plant has to be harvested is actually mentioned in Ayurvedic texts. And many a times we don't even bother about it. And we have seen through our own experience that different phases of the moon has different kinds of secondary metabolites being produced in plants, medicinal plants. So there is so much of interconnectivity. That's where we say quantum Ayurveda. Fundamentally, what we are trying to say is that the plant, the human, all of us are part of the single ecosystem, which has to be looked at in a holistic manner for us to be able to develop a medicine which is very, very effective. I think
interesting, pretty interesting, precise answer. And I was looking at a couple of speakers, their eyebrows was raised, including Prof. Anshu and you, when we spoke about the stress factor of the body. Amazing. So again, Dr. Sateesh, to you, from a modern medicine perspective, what type of evidence would make Ayurveda more acceptable in modern clinical setting? A one-line answer, or two-line would be more than that. What do you look for? What do you demand from us?
I just want to have a evidence-based medicine. If there is a clinical trials have been conducted properly, large randomized studies, the drug versus placebo, if it is showing some advantage, then only I can believe that. That's what we learned in allopathic medicine. Whatever we do, we follow the evidence-based medicine recommendations. Large randomized studies, either it could be prospective or observational, whatever it is, there should be, evidence should be there. And for example, like if I take a paracetamol, I know in and out of paracetamol, what is the chemical composition, what is the advantage we are going to get if we use that, and if it is, what are the side effects it is going to give us. So all these things I know in and out of paracetamol, that's why I'm comfortable to use that medicine. So if some doctor says that this herb or something is working on this patient, what is the composition in that, and what will be the side effect? If those things are mentioned, maybe I'm convinced to use, otherwise still it is in the dormant.
Sure. So Dr. Prasanna, let's try to convince this Dr. Sateesh.
Yes.
What kind of new evidence or modern do clinician needs to integrate Ayurveda into modern health system? Again, my question, what kind of new evidence or model do clinicians need to integrate Ayurveda into modern health system, according to you?
See, the contemporary science, medical science, deals with just the evidence. Now, for Ayurveda, it's not only the body or the medicine which acts. There are a lot of other components which comes in the play. An example, now we have a concept called Prakriti. We have a concept called, there are many concepts, such concept called Agni. So Agni is the root cause for the disease. Agni is also the root cause for the health. So this has to be interpreted in the language what world understand. Like Dr. what he understands, right? So that's the science should come in the way to help the ancient knowledge translate to the most acceptable knowledge. Ayurveda indeed, you see, believes on the prodromal symptoms. Disease can be prevented in the beginning itself. It is not what we have understood some days back the disease has initiated. It's a long path. See, an example, I worked around 7 years in the cancer therapy, right? So what it says, around 20 years before, the initiation of the cancer might have started in the body. When it exhibited, you are already told. If we know how to stop this in the first point itself, then really Ayurveda and allopathy integration and acceptable will be much better. Same way, one thing, the research what I said, one research which has undergone in Sanjay Gandhi Cancer Institute in Lucknow. In cancer therapy, right, chemotherapy is one of the medicine. So one chemotherapy, Ayurveda says Agni Karma has greater role than the medicine. So a joint research was conducted in Sanjay Gandhi Cancer Institute where the thermotherapy was introduced. In Agni Karma is the crude name or Sanskrit name. Thermotherapy is most acceptable name. When you raise the temperature of a particular area in the body where cancer exists, the sensitivity of the cells towards chemotherapy increases. So it's rather targeted. So such things we need from the science.
Wonderful. So let's go back to Professor Anshu. What unique advantages, like you did mention a brief about it, but again let's take a little deep dive. What unique advantages do quantum scale spectroscopic techniques offer in validating the efficacy for the traditional herb formulation which the team is talking about?
So one second, the problem would be, in some sense what we are, I'll rephrase the question and bring it into my line. So what we are trying to do here would be that, on one hand we have a situation where these are natural products, these are coming in with a big mess of molecules together. Because many of these species, as Dr. Anil Kumar mentioned, are silent, they are just spectators, they do not do much. There will be other species which actually contribute somehow. So what the task eventually would be that we want to firstly detect the real actives, we want to detect supporting molecules. Now how this can be done using nanomaterials, once again, we would be interested in various ways. Suppose we are talking about firstly diagnosis of what we are putting in or finding out what molecules are coming in. The first line of thought would be to actually use methods like plasmonic sensors, which are already loaded, say, with antibodies of target interest, right? So that those molecules can bind to them and thereby enable their detection. These tools already exist. This is things which are ancient, but these are getting refined continuously. They are becoming more and more informative because we have better ability to process and such like data. Also better substrates have emerged. The second point is, of course, now tracking cell organelles in real time. Now, that is not something which I do, but I do develop methods which would eventually be allowed in that angle. So to that end, what certainly greater developments in quantum science and quantum materials are enabling are better and better markers and emitters. That is one place where I see. The second place where I see major advantages coming in terms of detection are newer microscopy techniques, which are, again, super resolution methods, but not methods where we may necessarily be using markers. We may be just able to simply track cells at some point, organelles moving around, and so on. So this is using newer quantum states of light. So these are things in some sense still on the horizon, but rapidly coming in. These would be the next generation as far as I see. in terms of NMR, also there are certain quantum-based techniques coming in. These include, for example, things like dynamic nuclear polarization and so on, which can again shed light and better light on molecular interactions. This is a broader swath.
Just, Ma'am Tahira, like you did mention that your company focuses on the methodology of quantum Ayurveda. So my question to you is that how are you combining the classical herb wisdom with the tech-driven product development? So can you give us some light on it?
So we base our ingredient or formulations through taking the leads and evidences from Ayurveda. Use the AI technology to integrate the dosage, the molecular status, and the geographical conditions of the origin of herbs from AI-based platforms. And then we blend them with the techniques that Professor Anshu said and Anil said. We use those quantum principles to energize the frequencies within these ingredients, subject them to the clinical studies, and that answers Dr. Satesh's questions as well. Get evidence-based medicine, evidence-based combinations or nutraceuticals that we develop. So we blend, we preserve the holistic approach, the ratios that Dr. Anil was speaking. We ensure that the ratios are maintained and which of the phytochemical compounds have to be isolated and to express, which one has to express or energize. Then also, while we do the clinical studies, we also ensure that we do safety studies. That again answers Satesh's question. So that's the way we plan and bring out the formulations in the nutraceuticals.
So this question could be jointly answered by Dr. Prasanna and Dr. Anil. Now it's to validate what, again I may be wrong. See, what I understand is when too much of refinement happens, it loses its identity. Let's say maida, okay, and it causes diabetes, right? So in that simple way, I was asking myself, in classical Ayurveda, diagnosis and treatment are deeply personalized, okay, because it's coming from the natural aspect we are getting it. So how can a modern science, by igniting with AI and molecular qualification we are doing it, how does it support does it support, I mean, I'm not able to articulate like, it shouldn't lose its own identity when we are doing so much of deep profiling of the ingredient. So what would you like to say? So then, will the Ayurveda lose its identity?
So it's very true what you're
If you
saying.
want, you can articulate that question also.
Yeah,
I hope you got
what you are saying is very true. The more the refinement of Ayurvedic formulation, the greater chances that we might finally end up with mud, right? So we can't be really doing excessive refinement. But all the same, if we have to standardize the formulation, make it acceptable universally, globally, right? Like Doctor was saying just now. So we need to have some element of characterization coming in, some element of reproducibility coming in, right? And therefore it becomes necessary to that extent that we bring in some element of refinement. Of course, we need to balance it out. It cannot be excessive refinement, but an element of refinement wherein we still continue to keep multiple products, multiple molecules, multiple compounds from within the same plant species into our final formulation, and ensure that we do a clinical trial to ensure that the same kind of efficacy that we see from a well-documented Ayurvedic formulation is being produced from this kind of modified advanced formulation. Then we are on the right ground for it to be taken forward. So that's how I think we have to do the refinement. It has to be a very balanced and judicious refinement, I would say.
Right, sure. So Dr. Prasanna would like to comment.
In fact, Ayurveda is not only the drug-based management. Ayurveda has much more to give for the health-based, non-drug-based management too. If if you look into the research paper of Dr. Jaya Ramasundar, who has done research on Gayatri Mantra, and because of this Gayatri Mantra chanting, there will be the secretion of the happy hormone, serotonin and dopamine. It goes increased. And Ayurveda concept is not treating the disease first. It is treating the person, where the difference is treating a person and treating a disease is different. So Ayurveda's first concept is treating a person, Purusham. So there is a concern, and of course here, like so many other drugs therapies are there. When we select as a drug, we cannot compare the phytochemistry, simple phytochemistry with crude therapies. Ayurveda is taken as a drug as a whole, not as a single functional entity. When you use a single functional entity, there may be an undesired effect. When a drug as a whole is used, now we are doing one research with the Sachinova First Medical University of Moscow, where what sir said, the herb of the present, an example, I belongs to Hassan. The herb selected from Hassan and herb selected from a forest area and studied under spectrometry, and same study has taken care in Moscow. So that difference we are trying to find out. So drug, it is not same what we find the Brahmi here and maybe. So either the concept is Desham, Dushyam, Balam, Kalam. There are so many parameters. Desha is also considered while giving a treatment or health. So these concepts cannot be diluted, and if it is diluted, it's not Ayurveda.
Sounds interesting. Now let's hear it from an allopathic doctor. Can we realistically imagine a co-treatment model where Ayurveda and allopathy support each other? And there's been a recent development of JIPMER introducing a 5 years MBBS program having Ayurveda and MBBS. So what would be your unbiased answer towards it?
See, I don't say allopathy is the only way of going things. That is first thing I'm telling you, because there are so many things which we cannot create a resolution even in allopathy also. So if something is there coming up like for the good of the mankind, I welcome it. There is no point in negating that. The combination of Ayurvedic and allopathy may sounds good in the future, but in acute care medicine, I don't think Ayurvedic can replace allopathy. When a patient is dying, when the patient is having acute myocardial infarction, I can't wait till the whole vessel is completely occluded and muscle got spoiled. So the known therapy is always better than unknown therapy. So this is certain areas, acute therapy, I am more inclined towards allopathy. Maybe chronic diseases like diabetic, chronic diseases like hypertension, which is like lifestyle diseases. Maybe we can rely on Ayurvedic. But thing is, even in allopathy, why I am strong is telling whatever I am doing, I know what I am doing. Drug-drug interaction. If I want to take an anticoagulant for my atrial fibrillation or something. So I say if the patient is on warfarin therapy, I say specifically drug-drug interaction is very important in this patient. Don't eat spinach. Don't take medicines half an hour before or half an hour after that. So I'm giving a holistic approach to what I'm going to do. But if you throw these things, how exactly pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics happening in Ayurvedic medicines, I don't know. So I'm a little bit skeptical at this point of time, like encouraging this argument.
Well, it was also a difficult question in a public forum. So let's understand, let's take it as the last round of question. Assuming that we all are in front of 100, 200 people, it looks like, and we are going to form a consortium which is going to validate about quantum Ayurveda, okay, from all you specialists, and if I am one of your governing member, what are the things or guidelines which you would like to tell me so that the patient safety, the best outcome can be coming out from what is your wish list, or what exactly you would like the governing committee of quantum Ayurveda should have from your perspective, so that it is more quantifiable, it is more evidence-based, okay? And so that next session when we have a more formulated and structured discussion. So over to you all. Let's take 1 minute and please. And I'm going to make a note.
Create evidence and build the database for all the herbs and plant leads that we do. Whatever research we do in terms of creating quantum energies, we build a database that can be preserved and well used for the future broadly across. Yeah, we go for patents and we make it public.
Anshu, what are the do's and don'ts we should do?
I guess it has to be science and database eventually, so
let's put it in a layman language. I'll go ahead and say that, okay, Professor Anshu, let's get into your lab. What all you would require for me to get into your lab?
Look, my lab is not a medicine or bio lab. It's
Yeah.
basically a physical measurements lab. So, you can bring in the molecule, but there's not a whole lot I would do there. I mean, there are other experts who look into these things, not me. I develop more methods. So, like I said, I mean, what would be required would be to, again, systematize it. I would agree with Dr. Sateesh. There's a need to systematize these things. One would require precisely knowledge about how these things interact and work. And in my case, my small contribution here could only be that we would be developing methods which other experts would help, which would help other experts analyze these things and understand these things better.
Thank you. How about you, sir?
I'll take the example of curcumin, what you just now mentioned. Curcumin doesn't exist as one curcumin in the plant, turmeric. It exists as curcuminoids. Okay, so there are 3 molecules actually. And the ratio of these 3 is very, very important for the curcumin to be active, right? So as Ms. Tahira Madam was saying, I think we need to have developed first a database, a proper database of all these medicinal plants with deeply understanding the molecular level interactions that are happening within the plant. It's not just molecular level interactions happening when they are taken as a medication inside. It's not the metabolomics of it, but within the plant itself, how are the molecules existing, in what ratios are they existing, what interactions are they having between each other, right? I think that becomes very, very important for us to understand the pharmacokinetics of their absorption. And this data will be very, very valuable to ensure that there's repeatability of the drug, standardization of the drug, which will then lead us to the next step of bringing out the evidence.
Sure. Dr. Prasanna?
Yes, 2 concepts of Ayurveda, rather than Indian system of medicine, has been got Nobel award. That's last 17 and 18. But nowhere Ayurveda was acknowledged. One is the autophagy, that is the fasting, the resultant of the fasting, and another is the circadian rhythm. What Ayurveda says, I am not that what I was in the morning, right? Morning, the kapha component in the body increases. Noon, pitta component increases. And evening, vata. Same thing repeats in the night. So this kind of lot of concepts of Ayurveda has to be put under research, right? And it should be given to the society in the form of evidence. And definitely, as I said, doctor, accepting. So such work is already been started now. An example, ILBS, Institute of Liver and Biliary Sciences, Dr. Sarin and our Indian Institute, All India Institute of Ayurveda has already started regarding gut-brain theory. So, like the Panchakarma.
I understand, sir, they're popping up. So what you emphasize is that what are the theories that we have to put that into research and let the community participate so that we build more strong evidences. So one line now from your end.
Evidence-based medicine.
Evidence-based, okay.
No harm to the patient.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's an interesting start. It's an interesting start about quantum Ayurveda. Okay, you want to say something?
Last statement, because this was a discussion whether AI will help us in making a better healthcare and being available to everyone. There's one aspect of Ayurveda which we need to understand and also put in perspective. More of AI might not really help or give the results that we are looking at, because Ayurveda fundamentally, when we say quantum Ayurveda, we should understand the observer is part of the observation. So the doctor is part of the diagnosis that he or she is doing, right? And therefore, if AI biases the doctor's mind even before he or she looks at the patient, then there are every possibilities that we really don't see the right problem, right? So I think we need to take AI and its role with a pinch of salt and look at quantum Ayurveda as a real solution.
So we'll take it offline now, because after looking at Professor Anshu, I'm thinking about asking about observer theory of quantum. Okay, so the discussion will keep going on. But if you want to say something about observer theory, you may go ahead.
No, actually.
Thank you very much. It was interesting, and again, I would say it's not an end; it's a beginning. Okay, as I told you, I myself am the kindergartner, and at least in front of all these 5 people, I don't want to get bored into it. So thank you very much for this lovely start of quantum Ayurveda.
Thank you.
Let's all take it forward.